It always comes to this. More nice shit. Morning guys, back into another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I showed off my 11th session on my Krampus back piece done over black. That is presumably the final session I'll have on that, at least for a very long time. It should be pretty much exactly like the rose sleeve now, where once it's done it kind of just does its thing, and it did take a little while to get there. 11 sessions it feels like more than it was. You know, I could sit for a sleeve session every week, but with your back, it's a little more intense. So every session was between 4 to 5 hours on that. We probably put close to 60 hours into my back piece overall. Of course, that's not counting the twice blacked out and the full back piece before it. So I probably got, 150 to 200 hours on my back, including my first back piece, blackouts, and new back piece. And so in total, I've had enough on my back, we'll say, and ready for a good break. Fortunately, it already kind of feels like mostly healed. It's only been 2 days, but there's no pain left in my back, and it seems to me to be like that when I get tattooed in several places in a week, whatever I've done most recently is the only place I can feel any sort of like soreness and even then, it doesn't last long. But like, for example, I had this done at the start of the week, Monday. Now it's been 5 days, and yeah, it's a little dry, but there's no pain in there at all anymore. My back is already easing up because just yesterday I had another session. So it seems like your mind can only focus on pain in one area at a time, and whatever's like in the greatest kind of need, your attention kind of goes there. So with that said, I will show off what I had done yesterday. Had another session done on my Nosferatu here. Let's hope I can show it off. This guy's hard to show off on camera, but there's going to be pictures and stuff in here. I'm going to have to figure out a better way to do this. So the Nosferatu there, we did the red around him and quite a bit of the white again, and the opaques we didn't get into the face the first time, but there were a few spots that were still healing, so we avoided those. But we'll be doing another session on this here in a month or two, whenever those spots are completely healed. While I'm down there, I will show off the candy cane if I can. So I don't know if that's doing the trick. It's hard to show off these leg tattoos. So the candy cane is it's duller than it was, like I figured it would be, but it's there and you can see it. And so that whole thing will just need to be redone. It's got like maybe just like a few little scabs on it still. Again, that was my wife's first try doing color on black, and also her first time tattooing me. So it was what I expected. It healed easier than the Nosferatu did, but it still needs some work, obviously. And I don't expect anyone who tattoos me for the first time to have a perfect go unless they've been tattooing, for years already. My wife and Ashlyn both have only been tattooing for, I think Ashlyn will be 2 years in May, and Sarah will be 2 years in November. So these are both fairly young artists that are doing these things and doing a very good job for where they're at. With that said, as I've said before, it doesn't take a wizard to do this stuff. And I am more than willing to give people a chance. I kind of like that, the idea of like people learning and growing, through the work they're doing. It's very hard to learn how to do something like this without just doing it too. There's like no real good way to to figure it out without actually having someone that's willing to give you a chance to. So that's more or less been my mode going into my leg tattoos, is like give people a chance to fail, and then figure it out, come back, and we can always sort it out. This idea that like once the tattoo is done, you can't do anything, like that's all debunked. So for me, it's like with 2 or 3 passes on anything, you can smooth out just about anything. And by the time we get the next pass in on this Nosferatu piece, for example, it's going to be a lot better looking overall, just because there's some stuff that's a little out of place in it still. But I am not at all concerned about the overall look of that tattoo, and it's probably going to be one of the nicer ones I have, aesthetically speaking. So I actually plan on doing another tattoo with Ashlyn down the road on my other calf. I'm going to have her do both calves, and we're going to do something similar but different. So, but we've got at least one more session on the Nosferatu, and the red background really helped bust it out. Similar to how we did the opaque background around the candy cane, and that went really, really big for that tattoo. It's really hard to show off on camera, but that little bit of gray around the edge of that black outline really, really makes a world of difference in the overall clarity of the candy cane, especially where Sarah started at the bottom of the candy cane. The red isn't very bright, and near the top of the candy cane, she had figured it out as she worked bottom to top, and the color was a lot denser as she went. So but a good idea is always to, if you're going to outline something in black on black, to just kind of feather off a little bit of light gray around the edge of it. It will really put emphasis on that black outline, and if we hadn't have done that, it would have been a lot more subtle than it is. So with a second pass, I actually think that the candy cane will only need a second pass. If we want to, we can probably highlight that, but maybe a little bit, maybe the light blue will go again, and then maybe some of the brightest red, but that one won't need a whole lot more love. It's a fairly small tattoo, but anything you do over blackout should be done more than once. You should never do just one pass on something and then expect it to be good when you're doing blackout. I would argue, and I've said this before, that any color tattoo should be done more than once, but some people don't have that patience and don't care that much, and obviously it's not as important as it is to do when you're covering something, but when you are covering something up, you should almost always expect at least a second pass, whether it's over blackout or not, just because your body can only take so much ink per session. With that said, we quite purposely did less. Ashlyn and I did less this time than we did last time. The last session we had was like 7.5 hours on that thing, which was ballsy as fuck, given that it was a calf tattoo, full color, cover up, and it was her first try tattooing not just me, but over black. It was a very ambitious amount of work, and I had that pretty bad heel. So this time is immediately already less pain in that tattoo, and she got it in better because she shadowed Terry, and she was a little less nervous this time. And I was really, really hoping she wouldn't get in her head over it, because she did. She fucked me up a little bit, and she knew that, and it wasn't like I was offended. It's just a reality, and I think it bugged her a bit because I get tattooed a couple times a week and I heal really quickly. And then even when Sarah tattooed me, the heal wasn't as bad. But by the time that I had Sarah do the candy cane on my leg, I was a little more reasonable, and I didn't, expect to do this huge tattoo. I think Ashlyn and I both made the mistake of pushing too hard that first time, so that's why I think that happened. I don't think it was that she was so out of her league. I think it was just too big of an attempt for one session. So this time we just chose to do 3.5-ish hours. I told her at the beginning, let's just do 3 to 4 hours, and then she just had a few spots she didn't want to touch yet, and we'll get to those when they're fully healed. With that said, I did mention that I was going to talk about something last video. Was I was going to get another tattoo done by another artist here at the shop. Very talented artist, very versatile artist. In some ways, I think might be even a little bit more technically savvy than Terry, although maybe a little less consistent. Every artist is different, and so they have their strengths and weaknesses, right? Like anything else. And I like most of the artists. Like, I won't say I dislike anyone at this shop, but most of the people who work here are people that I would get tattooed by. They're mostly technically proficient, or if they aren't yet, they're on their way to be. And so I kind of want something from everyone here. And I did plan on getting a tattoo with her, and I probably still will. But she's having a lot of apprehension about the industry in general right now, and was in a bit of a depression last week because her books are not doing the best. And it's sad to see, but it's a lot of artists. Like, even Ashlyn, with the quality of work that she's doing, you would think that she would be busy, but realistically, she only has a couple appointments a week right now. And that's a lot of the industry at the moment. I've heard from artists all over the world. Alex Rose is moving out to Canada, and I hope that he does better out here. Like, there's a lot of places that I've heard, people that I've heard from that are not doing well, and there's more and more tattooers every day. And I knew that was going to happen at some point. There's this quote that I've heard a lot lately, like, everyone and their uncle has tattoos. I actually think it's worse than that. I think everyone and their uncle is a tattooer at this point. There's the top has exploded off the industry. It's completely oversaturated. Every corner you look, there's a tattoo shop. When I started getting tattooed in this city over 20 years ago, there was maybe a handful of shops. Now there's at least 30. And I'm not kidding. And this is a fairly small city. If you were to go to Calgary or Edmonton or any other bigger city around here, there's got to be hundreds. And most of them are packed and taking on apprentices every day. Now, we have 6 artists at this shop, so I'm not going to say we're guilt-free. But there have been a lot of people who've gotten into this for the wrong reasons, and I think they're going to get out of it as fast. Part of the reason why I never chose to become a tattooer myself is because I know what it is, and a lot of people don't. They see a lot of money changing hand, and they think that artist is doing very well, and they think that it's an easy way to make a lot of money. And it can be if you're doing really well, and you've spent a lot of time doing it, and you can do a lot of different styles and or you've got a niche that people come specifically to you for. But the reality is, it's like anything else, right? It's like looking at like a big streamer or something and going, all they do is play video games. That's easy. And look at the money they're making. You know how many thousands of streamers there are that have no audience and don't make any money, right? People have this glamorous outlook on it, like everyone that does it is making that kind of money, when realistically it's more like 5% of the industry is doing very, very well, and the other part of the industry is probably making just over minimum wage, all things considered, if not sometimes less. Like, when it's good, it's good. It's very feast or famine. But the problem with having so many artists in the city is I've heard people say things like, I've been meaning to get this tattoo for so long, but there's so many artists, I don't know who to go to. And when you hear things like that, it means that that's probably the overall prevalent subconscious kind of thought that most of the client base is having around here. And that apprehension leads to even thinner books for some artists. And now, not everyone here is doing that sparse, right? Rick and Terry are both fully booked, but they've been in this industry for a long time, and both of them have kind of they've built up their clientele, and they're jack of all trades type people. And so none of that is really technical, though. It's more about belief. The audience that they have, or the clientele they have, the city that we're in, believe that they can do the job. So it doesn't actually matter whether they can or not. For example, Alex, the tattooer that was going to be tattooing my leg, I have zero doubt she could have done that tattoo effortlessly on me, and it would have gone in better than Ashlyn or Sarah. She packs immaculate color. It's very impressive work. But because she hasn't done it yet, and because because people don't really understand the way I do what she's capable of based on what I've seen. There's no trust there. So if you were to try and recommend her for something, people haven't seen it yet and they're not willing to go first, right? So like anything else, there's a lot of like belief trumps reality, right? It's like it doesn't matter if the artist is technically gifted. It only matters if it's believed that they are. And for example, there are a lot of tattooers in this city that have been doing it for 20 years that people trust that can't even pull a fucking line. We have people, and this is probably true in every city, that have been doing this for a lifetime that still can't get it right. And there were people like that in the kitchen. I used to work with guys. Oh, I remember one time in particular, we had an old dude in the kitchen, and I've told this story on here before. He was in the business for 40 years. He couldn't keep up, but you couldn't tell him anything because he'd been in the business for 40 years. So when you start calling him orders, trying to help him out, he gets lippy at you because he's been doing it for too long. But then he can't keep up because he's new at the place. So which one is it, right? And he's full of bad habits. Like, yeah, sometimes experience isn't good, right? Not all experience is good. You can spend a long time failing at something, or you can get good at it fairly quickly. And the public believes that because you've been doing it for a long time, that you can make a better product. But that's not always the case. So when you're contending with emotional reasons for things, right? Like her books are less full than that guy's books would be because he's been doing it for ages, whether he's a good artist or not. And there's a lot of bad artists. There's also a lot of people that got into tattooing, and I've seen it firsthand, that have been taught how to draw so that they can make money doing it, and they're not actually artists. And I think that that's a bad call because I've said all along that this was going to happen. At some point, people are going to realize that it's not as difficult as it looked from the outside in. And then so many people are going to be getting into it that it's going to devalue the whole thing. And before long, it won't even be better than working a minimum wage job anyway. So the only sensible reason to get into something like this is because you are an artist or you enjoy art. I've never been the guy who sits around the house drawing or painting, whereas Alex is. At our Christmas party, she made everyone a gift. She, made homemade gifts for everyone, painted and draw and, like really original stuff. Like that's an artist to me. And a lot of the tattooers that are in this now don't do anything like that. And most people think that they're getting like handcrafted, like drawn tattoos. No, everything is like, it's not just done on Procreate. Most artists have brushes that take care of all of it for them. So they don't even draw any part of the tattoo a lot of the time. And especially if you're getting a realism piece, there's zero drawing in that. And so there's almost no art left in tattooing. And so what you've got is a lot of people that have gotten into it just to make money, which, don't get me wrong, I understand the need to make a good amount of money, but I never wanted to be that guy. Like Rick is a lifelong artist. He's always out in the shed drinking and drawing and fucking he's making masks, like horror movie masks and shit, and like his whole life is just art and drinking. That's it. Like that's a tattooer to me, but it's not anymore. There's very few people who actually are artists in this industry anymore. For example, my wife, she's got a bachelor degree in art. She's done every kind of art you can imagine over the years. And for me, I was telling her since I met her that she should be in this. Whereas if I got in it, it would be very, very phony, right? And I know that. So I never opted to do it. I'm more of a tech guy. I enjoy doing laser. Even though I don't really believe it's the best option a lot of the time, I enjoy piercing. I didn't really feel like doing a black and gray lion on someone would give me any kind of happiness, I would be happier to black it out, just because I enjoy saturation and clarity and the cleanness of something. I don't really enjoy the artistic property the way that it would make someone else happy. So And I knew that going in. I've been offered apprenticeships forever. At some point, I may take it up because, to be honest with you guys, I have done a little bit of it. It would be crazy if I haven't dabbled in it. And what I can tell you is my first lines I ever pulled were cleaner than a lot of artists that have been doing this for 20 years. And that's not a brag either. There's just a lot of people that actually aren't that good at this. And I think there's so many people, it's hard to even know who to trust. There's just so many. And I don't think that there's enough. I don't think the audience is big enough in a small town like this to support as many artists as there are. And that's part of what I told Alex here at the shop last week was, like, if you're thinking about this, then that means that there's a lot of artists thinking about this. And I would recommend that because you are a lifelong artist, you stick it through and you stay in this industry, not because I want you at this shop, even if you go to another shop one day. The real artists should stick it through, and I think a lot of the fake ones are going to fall off when the money isn't there that they thought it was, you know. And by the way, just because you give a tattooer $500 doesn't mean they're making that. It means they're making far less than that. You go do an order on Icon these days, every time we order from Icon, everything is more expensive than it was the last time. And our prices haven't gone up. You can't raise our prices yet. Everything else is going up. I went and I bought a pack of chicken from Walmart the other day. They were, a few years ago, I was complaining it was $10 for 4 chicken breasts. It was $16 for 3. And now we're in Canada here, and our economy is in the fucking toilet. But I can guarantee you this, we haven't gone up over 50% per tattoo here at this shop like everything else has gone up. So when I hear people say tattoos are more expensive than they used to be, it's just not a thing, right? No, especially not if you scale with inflation like everything else has. But it's causing a lot of people a lot of stress, and you see artists slashing their rates and doing promos. And I seen one artist in Calgary doing a Get Tattooed for Life special in December. Pay $5,000 and you get tattooed by me for the rest of your life whenever you want, kind of thing, or whenever you can book it. I've seen so many off the wall approaches for artists to avoid closing their shops and shit or getting out of the industry. It is a wild time, and I've seen it all over the world. And some people are being honest about it, and some people aren't. You have people putting up fucking bullshit stories about how full their books are, and then when you look at their actual calendars, they've got spots everywhere. Nobody wants to show their hand, but I have no problem telling people reality, and I've heard even from some very famous artists that this is a problem. So I'm sure it's just a sign of the economy and where we're at around the world, but I think a lot of artists are going to be leaving this industry over the next few years just out of necessity. I just hope that it's the right ones that do. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys here again soon. Have a great day.